Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today we're going to be talking about a film that, in my opinion, did not achieve the success that it deserved, and that is the 1984 film Streets of Fire. And basically, the plot of this movie is that rock diva Ellen Aim is kidnapped by a biker gang known as the Bombers, who are, despite the fact that this is the 1950s greasers who look like they come straight out of the Wanderers. And Ellen's former flame, Tom Cody, is summoned back to town as a result of her disappearance. He's as tough as they come, and also something of a jerk, frankly. And along with Ellen's manager and a tough-as-nails two-fisted sidekick, he sets out to get Ellen back. This leads, as you might imagine, to lots of fighting and things exploding at the slightest provocation before the movie hits its big, all singing, all dancing, all fighting extravaganza. And I'm kind of not exaggerating on the all singing, all fighting kind of thing. This is a movie that ends with a big fight and a musical number. So, Streets of Fire, as I sort of mentioned up front, tanked at the box office, but I had a great time with it. So let's talk about why. So first of all, Streets of Fire is an urban western. It's directed by Walter Hill, who is perhaps best known for 1979's The Warriors, which I adore, and 1982's 48 Hours, which I haven't seen since like another 48 Hours came out in the later 80s. And Hill once said, "Every film I've ever done has been a western." Though he probably said it in an American accent because he's American. And that's certainly true of both the films I just named, and it's also true of this movie. I could absolutely see a young John Wayne or Clint Eastwood in the lead role, riding into town to save his saloon owner and former flame from the desperados who want to terrorize the town. Of course, the 1980s was not exactly a boom time for westerns, even ones in a neo-noir disguise. Westerns wouldn't really make a comeback, however brief, until Unforgiven came out, and that was a very different kind of western. So I'm not sure about the timing of it. But yeah, this is an urban western. It's a neo-noir film, but if you look at it, it's a western plot. It's it's a cowboy movie plot. Chasing the bad guys, but it's in a 1980s city environment with music. So I've called this rock opera, and I mean that in all senses of the phrase. Music plays a major role in this film, right down to there being like a show-stealing number at the end. Streets of Fire mashes, sort of then contemporary guitar and synth rock from the early 80s with 1950s rockabilly, jams them together. It sets the tempo of its action sequences to match the soundtrack, and it just unabashedly slams musical conventions of musical films into an over-the-top action movie. It takes the pared-to-the-bone plot that it has and embellishes it with extravagant production and hyper-stylized dialogue and, big song and dance numbers, basically. And like opera itself, there's nothing naturalistic about this movie. People talk in a hyper-stylized, as I've already mentioned, unnatural way. Like people in opera sing about their feelings. It is not in any way a naturalistic film. You are very clearly watching kind of a performance. I love it. So will some of you. Others of you will hate it. I doubt many of you will be ambivalent, though. You're likely to have an opinion one way or the other. And then we come to my third, this is more of a point of interest. So it failed franchise. Streets of Fire was envisaged as the first in a trilogy. Now, I have no idea how or why anyone at Universal Studios thought that a musical western noir film was going to launch a franchise. But I really wished I lived in a universe where it did. In our sad reality, as I mentioned, it failed at the box office, and then many of the people involved in the production also left Universal to go to 20th Century Fox, which were two strikes that basically proved enough to sink the idea of sequels. Though notorious B-movie director Albert Pyun, whose quality of film, though not success of film, probably peaked with 1982's The Sword and the Sorcerer, which shows kind of what a low bar all of his other movies set. Did make an unofficial follow-up in 2018 called The Road to Hell, and Michael Paré, who is the lead in this film, did actually come back for that. I have not seen The Road to Hell. I have seen other early 2000s movies from Albert Pyun, and that is why I have not seen The Road to Hell. I cannot imagine it being good. So I loved Streets of Fire. I think it is a crazy thing that this movie was made, an even crazier thing that they thought it would launch, a franchise. But I adore that it was made, and I had a great time watching it. What are we going to talk about next time? Well, next time we're going to talk about some actual westerns rather than movies that are westerns in other clothing, if you like. And we're going to talk about 3 John Wayne cheapies from the 1930s. And we're going to talk about 3 of them because basically, if I talked about each one of them separately, I'd be repeating myself because, a lot of these movies are highly interchangeable. So, yeah, join me next time where we'll have a little bit more of a muse about the Western genre in general, as exemplified through the output of the well-known and prodigiously productive in the 1930s John Wayne. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this.